Hey everybody, thank you for joining me. Today we're going to go ahead and cover the UHC CEO situation.
That's dope. You done got you one.
Luigi Mangione posted up quick, wasted no time with that homie. Taking out the trash, I'ma have to call him Tony. Graduated masters in West Management. Damn baby, you sold me. And he's literary. Read the Unabomber, said nah, that's not even scary. Violence is necessary, baby, please spare me. Just guide it with your thumb real carefully. Luigi Mangione posted up quick, wasted no time with that homie. Taking out the trash, I'ma have to call him Tony. Graduated masters in waste management. Damn baby, you sold me. And he went to Yale. What? And he's really hot. What? And he's in jail. LOL. I can't even spell. Oh my god, I'm going to hell. Left and right, together we unite. E pluribus unum, together we are right. But they don't want you to know because we're going to go ahead and let JREG explain the situation a little, and then we're going to give our own thoughts and watch another video and just do some other stuff to give some surrounding context. Enjoy!
So a few days ago, the CEO of United Healthcare was assassinated. He was shot outside a hotel in Manhattan while the company was celebrating Investors' Day. Big stock increases were happening in the company. And this is, maybe partially because of the fact that United Healthcare is one of the highest deniers of insurance claims in America. The killer wrote deny, defend, depose on the bullet casings that he used to murder this man. And he left a backpack full of Monopoly money for the cops to find. So this was clearly a targeted, politically motivated assassination. And I think it's really important.
It was a targeted assassination against the MIP machine, the money in politics machine, which Luigi was well aware of. He wanted to fight against large financial interests in your human rights politics. So shout out Luigi.
Important here that we all take a step back and we really examine what's happening here, because this is deeply disturbing. For those of you that don't know, the words deny and defend specifically refer to tactics that insurance companies will use in order to not give you the claims on your insurance. Obviously, it's in the best interest for the bottom line of an insurance company to not pay out the claim when you ask for the claim, even if it's sometimes a justified claim to ask. And, for United Healthcare in specific, they were using an AI that they knew had flaws with it, but it rejected more claims than a human would, so they kept using it. So that's just an example of that. So yeah, clearly this guy was someone who was making a case against the insurance industry by killing the CEO. I see a lot of reaction about this online, and I just want to remind everybody, this was a human man, okay? He had a family. Reveling in bloodshed can only lead to more bloodshed. And the spark of God is within all of us. So we shouldn't be celebrating this, okay?
Yeah, y'all, a spark of God is within all of us, and that's why you should be a God not of the bad stuff, and you should be a God of the good stuff. Because if we think about paganism, there are gods of some stuff that people might think is more bad, so don't be one of those gods. It's okay? Because you are God, but be a good God, not a bad God.
This is actually a very scary moment in human history that we should be very aware of. So I just want to unpack this. So the first really concerning thing about this is the accessibility. I mean, all you really need to do to pull something like this off is like $400 for the pistol and an e-bike. That's all it takes to become a beloved anti-hero type character for Gen Z forever. So accessible. Like, you can literally Google these people's names and their addresses come up. Like, if I wanted to find Larry Fink's house, I'm picking the name out of a hat here, okay? Just calm down. But like Larry Fink, for example, You could just Google that and it pops up. I mean, what if the GeoGuessr people start teaming up with the assassins? Who knows what'll happen? It's not a funny situation. I mean, you can just you can Google the BlackRock headquarters. You can find out where in New York that is. And you could see these people, these executives of whatever corporation you've decided to hate, just walking around with families and mortal bodies and wives
And you know, this is he's memeing, maybe. He's slightly memeing. He's posturing as if it's a meme, but a lot of these companies have already put out ads looking for new executive security positions. I saw a post yesterday saying that both Amazon and I don't remember the other company, but there were two companies that had both posted an ad on the same day as the shooting, posting for a new executive security position.
explodable heads and sins. Oh God, the sins that almost beg to be cleansed with fire. I'm making this video because 4 months ago, I made a video called Assassinations Are So Back. This was after Donald Trump got shot. And, you know, I sort of, to some, it seemed like I was advocating for more assassinations and for this exact thing to happen. And I actually specifically said that this exact thing should happen.
I mean, these guys are literally just walking around with addresses. I think if oil executives were getting killed, even if it was just 1 in 10,000, people would be like, maybe I should reconsider this oil executive thing. Everybody in power right now is just walking around with a human body. A vulnerable human body.
People don't understand this about my channel. I had a big satire alert over it, okay? Did you not see the satire alert? So maybe if he was watching that video and he saw the satire alert, maybe he missed the satire alert. That's not my bad. So I'm free of the consequences of the things that I say, okay? The words that exit my mouth, there's no consequences. Because
this video is also completely satire. All of this is just a live action role play. I'm LARPing. None of this is real. Thank you. I'm just a cat in a vat. I'm a brain in a hat.
I said the word satire at some point during that video. What kind of sick, dysgenic mutant would do this kind of horrible, oh, he's hot. Oh, he's hot. Okay, so he's hot, all right? That's fine. Lots of women want to fuck him and he's hot. But he also took the life of his fellow man who looks like this. I'm just saying, that's bad physiognomy. And when people with this kind of physiognomy are running things and they're in power.
Bad, JREG. We should not use physiognomy.
I don't know, it kind of gives you a bad vibe sometimes, doesn't it? It kind of makes you think, why is this guy in power? Why is the beautiful man, the underdog here, and this guy?
Because he's older than the other guy. The other guy is a child, and this guy is well into his developed CEO career.
This right here is the physiognomy of the kind of guy who's going to be investigated for insider trading and shady business deals. I feel specifically like it's important for someone like me to make this video because I know that I have a lot of susceptible members of my audience to this kind of event, and I want to sort of get in quickly and nip that in the bud. I know
when I watched this the first time, I could not stop giggling at this part because I was like, it feels like he's saying the exact opposite to his entire audience. He's like, I have an extremely vulnerable audience, so y'all know what to do.
There's a lot of in my audience especially, politically extreme, disaffected people, maybe with nothing to lose. And I really feel for those people, and that's why I'm making this video. To reach them. There's so many deeply disturbed young men who just want to do violence, and they have no outlet for that violence to go to. You know, it kind of makes you wonder, what if they channeled that? And that makes a lot of women want to fuck them. Have you seen this shit? Because a lot of women want to fuck this guy now, and you could probably get the same sort of attention from women on you if you did a similar thing. That's what makes it so scary. But there is a light at the end of this tunnel for those of you worried about the direction that
it is very scary to think that you could have women on you. Women are terrifying.
We're headed in right now, okay? There's going to be a reaction to this. That reaction is going to be increased security details in the short term. But in the long term, it's going to look
as mentioned.
Something like using their techno-capital to augment their bodies so that they are effectively unkillable, and passing authoritarian laws so that stuff like this can't happen again.
Intimidation.
There's a picture on Luigi's thing. This is kind of what I think of. You know, normal range of possible states for the human race constantly shifting. 2 likely possible states for the human race after ASI, but it becomes permanent, we kind of lock in. And I think that based on the kind of spaces I imagine he was in, he's probably of the idea, which I also am, that a kind of ASI or AGI is coming in the next 2 to 10 years ish, right? Like it's here, it's coming, right? So he is feeling like we are on the edge of a precipice. We are on the edge of a bad situation because things kind of suck right now. And if things get forced into here, we're going to extinction. And he wants to push us into immortality. So if we are combining this idea of his utilitarianism, maybe even his idea of virtuousnism, right? And the idea that a virtuous person would try to push people towards immortality rather than extinction. Which is like, I guess, a philosophical moral debate, right? Is that really the kind of person that is more virtuous, or would the more virtuous person be pushing everybody to extinction? But that's not for me to decide. That's a question. But anyways, I'm thinking that he may have been attempting to push us to this immortality better kind of status.
Violence against the prime minister and politicians from all parties have become alarmingly routine.
Where the rubber hits the road on this, our law enforcement needs to have more tools.
3 to 5 years before these people start having metal skulls and the ability to upload their consciousness into multiple bodies. So don't worry, like we only have to deal with this for maybe 5 years.
And I believe JREG actually is on the same page with this, right? You know, he's saying 3 to 5 years, things are going to be stuck in the bad position. So you have an opportunity.
But in those 5 years, there could be a lot of stuff that happens. And so I'm worried about that. I'm worried about those 5 years. I'm worried about the CEOs. I'm worried about the oil executives. I'm worried about oil executives. I'm worried about the people that have made a fortune doing Moloch type behavior. Okay, now let's get a little politically schizophrenic here. The third bullet casing that was written says depose, depose. What kinds of positions of authority do you depose? You depose a monarch. There is an intellectual group known as right accelerationism. This is founded by a guy called Curtis Yarvin. The Dark Enlightenment thinks that the Enlightenment was a mistake, the French Revolution was an error, and we need to go back. We should go back to monarchy. And in this case, monarchy is an interesting term, right? Monarchy, the concentration of power into a singular unit. This is functionally how CEOs work. They want countries to be run in the same way that CEOs run companies. It's a tight concentration of power into one node. Now, obviously, there's boards of directors and stuff, so it's more complicated than that. But that's the pure premise of what they're advocating for. We should have a CEO, tech monarch king. You know, Elon Musk plays into this sometimes, calls himself the tech king of X or whatever.
I also heard that he's been calling himself the first buddy of the president, which I find hilarious. And then I also heard that another president's dog had the same title. So Elon Musk is Donald Trump's dog. Oh my, they're buddies, they're dogs. You know what I mean? They know what I mean, jelly beans?
But in a monarchist system, you know, in a system where you're being governed by a king, by a central ruling authority, you know what you do when the king isn't doing his job properly for the people? Depose. Depose. That was the third bullet casing. Depose. What kinds of authority figures do you depose? You know, in China, when the emperor's acting a fool, when he's not doing his job properly, there's a little revolution. And if he gets deposed, that means that he lost the mandate of heaven. Simple as. And he's no longer fit to rule. And so, you know, I think maybe Brian Thompson lost the mandate of heaven here. And I think maybe a lot of people are about to lose the mandate of heaven. To be fair, though, I do think that the guy who killed Brian Thompson should now have to become the new tech CEO monarch. The assassin should be forced to run his job for a year, and then the board of directors can be like, not so easy balancing shareholder value, now is it? Okay, look.
Truthfully, I imagine Luigi might actually be able to run it decently well, considering his experience with his family's medical institutions, right? And his desires to do better things for more people, do better things for vaster amounts of people, right? Like maybe a craterocracy actually would be a good idea for somebody like a Luigi.
Look, I know we like to make jokes on this channel, but I should probably be serious here. I am not condemning violence. I don't think violence is...
He's not condemning violence, everybody. He does say in a note, I mean to say I'm not condoning violence. This is just me misspeaking, not a Freudian slip. But he does explicitly say he is not condemning violence. JREG is condoning violence. He's anti-condemning the violent behaviors.
Condemning violence, I don't think violence is good. If we want change, we can get change, but we have to do it through the system that our ancestors fought and died for. And I know that that is slow and inconvenient and frustrating, and to our dopamine-addled minds, we just want the results right away. But this is not the way to do it, because we are playing with fire, and we don't know where this trend is going to go. We don't want...
True, because that is a very real point. We don't know if, through this idea of utilitarianism, we don't know if things will butterfly towards extinction or if they'll butterfly towards immortality. So if he was taking a virtuous mindset, maybe through virtue, he could think about this. But through a utilitarian mindset, I feel like we actually can't know the truth of the situation and how society plays out on individual acts if you are only a single individual node in the network. But perhaps Luigi was part of a vaster network in the wider network of nodes. Maybe he was just a escape node out of the wider net node, you know? Or maybe not.
This to aggravate, say, government officials passing authoritarian laws that are bad for all of us. Wait, government officials who are just like kind of walking around with explodable skulls. Anyway, I didn't mean any of that shit I just said, but I'm going to crop this part of the video out in case I am ever questioned by authorities. I'm going to crop.
But now you're stuck. I got you, JREG. There is no cropping it out, because even if you crop it out, I have you stuck in 4K right here. I have December 10th at 11:41. You uploaded 1 day ago. Stop it.
This part of the video out. Here's a comment from one of my viewers who specifically had their lives altered for the better because of this, specifically because of this act, and they reversed this policy as soon as the guy died. So he like immediately made things better. He immediately made things better, and we were told for fucking our entire lives that the only way to make things better is to vote and incrementally change things, which never fucking does anything. It never fucking does anything. Things are so bad, man. Things are so bad, and these fucking people need to die. Is what I would say if I was insane. If I was one of these Gen Z people.
If he was the Joker. If he didn't live in society.
With no regard for human decency.
That's what he would say. Now, I do want to look up the... I do just want to take a quick minute to read the review that he wrote about the Unabomber, or on the Unabomber's writing here. Clearly written by a mathematics prodigy, reads like a series of lemmas on the question of 21st century quality of life. It's easy to quickly and thoughtlessly write this off as the manifesto of a lunatic in order to avoid facing some of the uncomfortable problems it identifies. But it's simply impossible to ignore how prescient many of his predictions about modern society turned out. He was a violent individual, rightfully imprisoned, who maimed innocent people. While these actions tend to be characterized as those of a crazy Luddite, however, they are more accurately seen of those as those of an extreme political revolutionary. A take I found online that I think is interesting. Had the balls to recognize that peaceful protest has gotten us absolutely nowhere, and at the end of the day, he's probably right. Oil barons haven't listened to any environmentalists, but they feared him. When all other forms of communication fail, violence is necessary to survive. You may not like his methods, but to see things from his perspective, it's not terrorism, it's war and revolution. Fossil fuel companies actively suppress anything that stands in their way, and within a generation or two, it will begin costing human lives by greater and greater magnitudes until the Earth is just a flaming ball orbiting third from the sun. Peaceful protest is outright ignored, economic protest isn't possible in the current system, so how long until we recognize that violence against those who lead us to such destruction is justified as self-defense? These companies don't care about you, or your kids, or your grandkids. They have zero qualms about burning down the planet for a buck, so why should we have any qualms about burning them down to survive? We're animals just like everything else on this planet, except we've forgotten the law of the jungle and bent over for our overlords when any other animal would recognize the threat and fight to the death for their survival. Violence never solved anything is a statement uttered by cowards and predators. So this was just him, reviewing some thoughts that he has in regards to what this is about and what he read online. And honestly, I kind of agree with him on Ted K's perspective. I don't think this is just the take of a Luddite. I think this is a fear of the future from Ted K. And I think that Luigi accurately pinpoints a lot of things that he says there. And I think that because he resonates with those kinds of ideas, it makes a lot of sense that he is the kind of person to utilize his First and Second Amendment to protect his 14th Amendment. Because at the end of the day, amendments protect amendments. People protect people. Corporations will never protect people.
The entire world is aware that today Luigi Mangione was arrested as the prime suspect in the unaliving of the United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson in Pennsylvania, where unironically he was eating at a McDonald's. He had his manifesto with him. He had the weapon,
He hates some corporations, but he loves his Mickey D Nugget.
possibly 3D printed with him. But no one, and I mean no one, is talking about the fact that the healthcare companies are single-handedly responsible for all of his family's wealth. I, however, happen to be just outside Baltimore, and in Maryland, we all know where his family's money comes from, and I think there's a tie no one is talking about. Let's get into it. So Luigi Mangione went to Ivy League schools. He also did Ivy League seminars at Johns Hopkins and at Stanford University. He is an intelligent man, but he also graduated as the valedictorian from the Gilman School. Now, if you're anywhere around Maryland, then you know when someone asks where you went to school out here, they're not talking about your university, they're talking about your high school. The Gilman School is one of the most elite preparatory schools in our region, racking in at anywhere between $35,000 and $39,000 a year to go to school there. Introducing the Mangione family. Now, the Mangione family actually is the head of a group of organizations that are privately held nursing care facilities, and it's called the Lorien Group. And if you look at the Lorien Health Services About Us page as of today, it says a family-owned and operated organization founded by and conducts itself based on strong family values. But if you look just a couple days ago, it looked like this. That's right, folks. Just a few days ago, it said when Nicholas and Mary Mangione founded Lorien Health Services, they set out to provide Maryland seniors with pride and dignity, yada, yada, yada. It's very interesting how that just changed, isn't it? But how do we know who?
That is really interesting that they changed that. Like, obviously, they're making efforts to separate themselves online from this term, Mangione, right? Mangione. And that's because, people are probably searching Luigi Mangione, and these people are popping up. Whether or not they're actually related to this case is not really important. The fact is, they're trying to scrub the web of their presence.
Who really owns all of these facilities, and how do we know he's related to them? Now, doing a fair amount of research on these nursing facilities, I've learned that since 1977, they've grown to have at least 9 long-term care and rehab facilities all across the state of Maryland. They also have expanded to add a healthcare services company, and they invested a ton of money in buying Turf Valley Golf Resort, where they have tons of weddings and conferences, and they also host hundreds and hundreds of dinners for healthcare and pharmaceutical representatives. No correlation, I'm sure. This is an article from the Washington Post discussing Nick and Mary Mangione's acquisition of the Turf Valley Resort. And it was in these responses to interrogatories from one of their lawsuits that I identified the ownership structure of Lorien Healthcare and their affiliates. In this document, they're answering who owns all of the facilities and who owns all of the stock in Lorien Healthcare and Lorien Health Services. And they identify it and say that the 10 adult offspring of Nicholas and Mary Mangione, listed as Louis, John, Rosemary, Linda, Lisita, Nicholas, Joanne, Peter Mangione, and Francis, and Samuel, and Michelle, each own a 10% stake. Now, in this same set of interrogatories, they identify the specific breakdown of the shell corporations and which corporations do what with which facilities. They also address ownership of the Turf Valley Resort. I also found an attached letter offering to purchase a new facility, and it was signed by a law firm, but it was signed by Louis Mangione, president of the company that was doing the development for all of the rehab facilities and the resort. Now, Louis Mangione, according to address records, is likely Luigi's father. I had to go and find out which of them were Luigi's parents. When I did a background check on Luigi, I found his address as 1 Buckley Court in Towson, Maryland, which happens to be the same address as Louis Z. Mangione and also his wife, Kathleen
What a small world!
Mangione. And as I said, Luigi at 1 Buckley Court, Towson. In case you're wondering, 1 Buckley Court is neatly nestled right at the foothills of Providence, one of the most exclusive areas to live in and around Baltimore and Baltimore County. It's also very close to the private country club that the Mangione family purchased and operates today. Now, taking a really hard look at how the experiences are for the residents at their family nursing facilities, at first glance, it looked like they were really actually on the up and up. It looked like their residents were well taken care of. It appeared that they were receiving decent care. I couldn't find very many lawsuits, but then I dug. I found a bunch of shell corporations, and I identified several malpractice suits against them. I also went and looked at the government rankings of their nursing facilities from the Medicare assessment team that actually determines whether or not the residents have a strong quality of life. And let me tell you, the numbers were not pretty. Jumping back to the healthcare
Ugly
facilities
numbers.
and the state or condition and quality of care that their patients receive. Remember, Luigi volunteered here quite a bit. Right now, their most recent health rating is 2 stars, and they have received at least 24 demerits just on the health conditions and the health inspection investigations in their one facility this year alone. If you look here, it says the average number among similarly sized nursing homes in the United States is 9.6, and they've received 24 demerits just this year on one facility. According to this, they're squeezing 112.7 patients on average into a facility that the average in the United States holds 81. But this is where the percentages really start to upset me. As you know, I have done a ton of research on private equity and healthcare. And right here, you're going to see the percentage of long-stay, low-risk residents who lose control of their bowels or bladder, which has to be marked every time it happens for Medicare to pay for their bills. 83.2%. The national average is between 48-ish%. That means that of their low-risk patients, almost 85% of them do not get taken to the bathroom in time to use the facilities and are forced instead to go on themselves or in their bed or in their diapers or whatever they have them using. But they are not taken to the bathrooms 84% of the time. This is the ownership of the facility so that you can see that these stats are for one of their facilities, Lorien Health Services, right here. And if you look, it's got their contact information right here. I'm not saying to use it. Do not use it. And it also lists their ownership, and here it is. We have Michelle, Rosemary, Linda, Joanne, John, Louis Mangione, Nick Mangione, Peter, Samuel, and Francis, the 10 siblings, each owning 10%, as stated in the article I posted before. Now, that's 1 out of 9 of their facilities. And I know what you're thinking. Well, how do we know that Luigi cares at all about what's happening at his family business that has grown and grown and grown? Well, if you look into his LinkedIn or
Yeah, so far, it really does sound like this is just about Luigi's family rather than about Luigi himself and what he believes. So I'm really interested to hear how this connects with his beliefs rather than just with his family system's beliefs.
you did before they took it down. It shows that he regularly volunteered at Lorien Healthcare Services. I give you Exhibit A, one of the instances where he did some volunteer work at his family business. Now, if you look at the notes that have come from the releases today of the manifesto or the documents that were with Luigi Mangione at the time of his arrest, the documents apparently said, "These parasites had it coming. I do apologize for any strife and trauma, but it had to be done." I am not informed enough to analyze whether he allegedly did what he's being accused of doing or why he did it. But what I do know is he was an incredibly intelligent individual, graduating valedictorian and then later cum laude from very prestigious institutions. His social media feed reads like a philosophical challenge board. And as somebody who has a degree in philosophy, I was actually kind of shocked by how much of his posting actually overlapped with a lot of the stuff that I read in school. I do know that we may be dealing with the possibility of an identity rebellion, or we could be dealing with an ideological, like ethical awakening. I know that online he frequently posted about utilitarian versus virtue ethics. Now, if you're not familiar with that concept, utilitarianism is the greatest good for the greatest number of people, regardless of what it takes to get there. Whereas virtue ethics say that an act is good only if a virtuous person would do it. He said that unequivocally, he tended to lean towards utilitarianism, saying that actions justify the outcome if the change was positive for the most number of people.
That's an interesting thing to think about. Virtue versus utilitarian. So I asked, would a vigilante act that causes ripples be considered utilitarianism or virtuous? And I said vigilante because of the fact that he is self-appointed, doing his own thing. So from a utilitarian perspective, if it prevents more harm than it causes, if it deters other criminals and reduces overall crime, which in this context would be like the healthcare CEOs, or like the insurance CEOs, also considering undermining the rule of law, copycat vigilantes, which I think he might even be in support of if they were doing similar things with similar ideals. Creating cycles of revenge or escalation. Maybe if the CEOs want to lash back, but in a lot of ways, I feel like this is countering things that they have done to people, especially from his perspective in like a first-person view, growing up in somewhere that is ran by like CEOs and like the leadership structure of a healthcare environment. Interesting. So from a virtue ethics perspective, we would instead examine the character and motivations of the vigilante, whether their actions stem from virtues like justice and courage or vices like vengeance and pride, if taking the law into one's own hand demonstrates wisdom and temperance, and whether a truly virtuous person would work within the system instead. Interesting.
What if the assassin family business? No, and then later cum laude from we could be dealing with an ideological, like ethical awakening towards utilitarianism, saying that actions justify the outcome if the change was positive for the most number of people. That kind of speaks to where we're at. So what do we know? We know that this guy was caught eating at a McDonald's with everything the police needed in his backpack. We know that he had very specific things written in that backpack that suggested that what he did needed to be done if he in fact did it. We also know that all of his family's wealth, and their wealth is substantial, came from the very same healthcare companies as Brian Thompson was the CEO of. And they have significant wealth. Among their shell corporations, they own dozens of businesses and a resort that houses thousands of acres of prime real estate in the middle of one of the most expensive states to own real estate in the United States. We know they owned homes in the most exclusive and expensive area in Maryland, and Maryland has several of the most expensive or the highest earning counties in the United States. We also know that if you watch his social media, at a certain point, Luigi Mangione began to talk more and more about the importance of society doing more good for more people. And he also cited frequently authors that advocated for the same. I would not say any of his postings leaned left or right, generally more like up versus down. Considering he's absolutely part of the up, it's an interesting quandary.
That is really interesting. It's also really interesting when we think about this idea of people in the up being part of the group that most wants to help the down, even if the down is like fighting it, because some of the up want to keep the down down, so they try to they try to force the down down, and they try to divide the down so the down stay down, because it's like a crab bucket. They want the crabs to fight the crabs. They don't want crabs to fight the human together. Anyways, so sometimes people in the up will like try to help the crabs up, but then the crabs will just get all pinchy. I don't know. So it is interesting to think about this. That's all I'm saying. And I'm just throwing out analogies. I'm on my Jordan Peterson arc.
We also know that while his family business looks to be an altruistic endeavor that's there to serve the patients and their families as they claim, their rankings show something different. It shows an area where too many patients are crammed into too small a space with too few nurses with bad health conditions, and they're left to sit in their own feces and their own urine. That reeks of profit before patient. And considering that all of their family wealth relied on these exact same insurers to keep that money flowing, it's a bold statement if that's in fact what he intended. Regardless, it is never okay to advocate for violence, and I'm not doing that on my channel. What I am doing is advocating that we all pray for the patients of Lorien Healthcare. We pray for their family members as they go through a difficult time of probably learning the kinds of conditions their family members have been in, and we're going to see other people that are struggling with the information that comes out.
Real. And also, in addition to this, I think that if I have learned correctly, right here, this spine demonstrates a spinal injury, which he is theorized to have suffered from. And if we look at the action video, I want you to watch his walking. Watch his gait right here. He walks a little weird. He walks very, like, wide and stiff. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Maybe I really am reading too much into that. But I truly see the gait of a man in pain, of a man who is not able to be completely able-bodied as he was in the past. Which he was. He was an able-bodied man. He's a hiker. He'd go kayaking. All these things. So I also wanted to... Okay, y'all. He has exactly 286 posts on his X account, and he was found at a McDonald's in Altoona, which is exactly 286 miles away from the Thompson murder scene, outside a Hilton Hotel in Midtown Manhattan. And as if that wasn't strange enough, there's also a link within the Bible, as Proverbs 28:6 states, "Better is a poor man who walks in his integrity than a rich man who is crooked in his ways." Mangione's disdain for the medical insurance industry has been well documented, as he referred to parasites who simply had it coming in a 3-page handwritten document in his possession. And then, perhaps most damning of all, 286 is a denial code used by healthcare providers when the appeal time limits for a claim have not been met, which he would know from the fact that he did volunteer with his family at the facility. So he would learn these codes and learn the software. I think one thing that's also extremely interesting is if you really look into it, he says that he was framed for the money. You know, somebody said that he has $8,000 and $2,000 of foreign currency. And he says that was framed. He says it's not real. So I think that's quite interesting as well. Hi, everyone. Thank you. I realized in editing that I never actually gave my thoughts on this. And I think my thoughts are kind of along the lines of, I think society does need change, right? I think that the way things have been going from some perspectives could be viewed as a good thing, but from other perspectives could be viewed as a very negative thing, right? So I feel like change is needed. I feel like it's very careful the way we go about this change in the future, because as mentioned in this video, I also kind of agree that like we're kind of going to get locked into a really good reality or a really bad reality, which again is subjective. Maybe you think the good reality is the one where we all get wiped out. Maybe you think the good one is the one where we all live. I'm not sure, but I think that is a real situation that we're dealing with. And I do think people need to do things to try and change the world, but I don't know if this was the answer, right? I support change. I support entropy. both as chaos, but but also as an information theory. I really love information theory, entropy. But I think that what's important is to have these conversations and discussions and put change in motion so that conditioned entropy can actually be gleaned from things rather than everything being turned into a divisive issue, right? Like as mentioned in the song, they like to keep us apart. As mentioned in my crab bucket analogy, they like to keep the down split. And I think that we should really use opportunities as Americans, building on American culture and history and the fact that we're a country built on the American Revolution, right? Like our founding story is one of people standing up against the system. And not necessarily in incredibly dangerous and violent ways, but just in like little everyday ways, right? So TLDR, change I think is a good thing. And I hope this video was good. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something or you gleaned something from it. I hope there's value. And yeah, that's all I got. So I love you and goodbye. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Also, if you watched all this, you're the GOAT, just so you know. I love you.